And what's interesting is the degree to which the example of peacemaking in Northern Ireland is now inspiring others. So in Colombia, Latin America right now, they're trying to undergo a peace process. And they've actually brought people from Northern Ireland to come and describe how do you overcome years of enmity and hatred and intolerance, and try to shape a country that is unified. You know this better than I do, but one of the things that you see in Northern Ireland that's most important is the very simple act of recognizing the humanity of those on the other side of the argument. Having empathy and a sense of connection to people who are not like you. That's taken time, but you're now seeing that. And I think among young people who are interacting more, you're seeing that. It requires also forging a new identity that is about being from Northern Ireland. As opposed to being unionist or Sinn Féin or just deciding the country as a whole is more important than any particular faction or any particular flag. But this is a challenging time to do that. Because there is so much uncertainty in the world right now, because things are changing so fast. There is a temptation to forge identities, tribal identities that give you a sense of certainty, a buffer against change. And that's something that our young people we have to fight against. Whether you're talking about Africa, or the Middle East, or Northern Ireland, or Burma, the forces that lead to the most violence and the most injustice. Typically spring out of people saying, I want to feel important by dividing the world into us and them. and them threatens me, and so I've got to make sure that my tribe strikes out first. And fighting that mentality and that impulse requires us to begin very young, with our kids. One of the most encouraging things I've seen in Northern Ireland is children starting to go to school. Together and having a sense that we're all in this together, as opposed to it's us against them. But it's going to take some time. It will depend on leaders like you to make it happen. All right? No pressure. You're going to be fine. You're going to do it? All right, good question. All right, so it's a gentleman's turn. That gentleman right there. Yes, you. There's nobody behind you, right there. No, no, no. Question, hi, I'm Peter from London. President Obama, hi, Peter. Question, I always imagine in the future. So if your successor comes to you and she says I suppose it could be Bernie. President Obama, for the next president? Question, and for yourself, as well. But, yes. President Obama, well, one of the things that I've learned as president. Is I don't always have the luxury of just choosing one or two things. Turns out that how well we do in the United States and how well the globe does depends on a lot of things. My first priority is to keep the American people safe. Just like I'm sure Prime Minister Cameron, if you asked him. What is your first priority? It's keeping the United Kingdom safe. So security is always going to be a top of the list item. And the threats from ISIL and transnational terrorism are absolutely critical to address. But how we address them is important. And recognizing that security is not just a matter of military actions. But is a matter of the messages we send and the institutions that we build. And the diplomacy that we engage in, and the opportunities that we present to people. That is going to be important for the next President of the United States and any global leader to recognize. I am in awe of our respective militaries. The men and women in uniform who serve their country and make such extraordinary sacrifices. But we do them a disservice if we think that the entire burden of keeping the world safe is just placed on those who are in uniform. That's where diplomacy comes in. You look at something like Iran, where obviously the United States and Iran has had a terrible relationship since 1979, the theocracy there has engaged in all kinds of very dangerous and provocative behaviors. And they were on the path to obtain a nuclear weapon. The hard, diplomatic work that we did, along with the UK and the EU and members of the Security Council. To forge an agreement where they are no longer on the path to get a nuclear weapon. We never engaged in a military strike to do it, but it resulted in a much safer world. And the same is true when you think about development in sub-Saharan Africa. An organization like Boko Haram is ideologically driven, and we have to help countries. Like Nigeria, fight against the brutality and the rape and the pillage that they engage in. But if there are communities where children can't read or feed themselves, they are much more vulnerable to fostering these kind of demented ideologies. So I think it's not an either-or question, and it's important for young people who very many. Thoughtful young people, I think, instinctually are suspicious of military action because too often it's been used as a knee-jerk response to problems as opposed to part of a broader set of solutions. But we have to do both, and we can do both. In terms of the United States right now, I would love to see a focus on early childhood education as the next step in filling out our social safety net. We don't yet have institutions that are fully adapted to the fact that, guess what? Women work and support families, and they need things like paid family leave and high-quality childcare. And we know that when we invest in children between the ages of 0 and 3, that the outcomes in terms of them getting effective educations and having thriving lives are enormous. We end up saving huge amounts of money from reduced crime and poverty if we just make that early investment. That's something that some countries do better than others. And we can learn from other countries along those lines. Across the board, across the developing world right now, I think we have to attend to issues of inequality. And one of the places to start addressing these issues of inequality is making sure that every child is getting a decent education. And a lot of our countries are not doing as well as they should on that front. All right, who is next? The young lady right there. You, yes, you. Question. President Obama, for those of you who are not aware, TTIP, as we call it, is the trade deal that is being negotiated between the United States and the European Union. We haven't gotten it done yet. The truth is that the United States and Europe already have enormous amounts of trade. But there are still barriers that exist that prevent businesses and individuals that are providing services to each other to be able to do so seamlessly. And if we are able to get this deal done, it's estimated that it will create millions of jobs and billions of dollars of benefits on both sides of the Atlantic. But getting trade deals done is tough, because each country has its own parochial interests and factions. And in order to get a trade deal done, each country has to give something up. So it's a time-consuming process. And people. Right now, are especially suspicious of trade deals. Because trade deals feel as if they are accelerating some of these globalizing trends. That have weakened labor unions and allow for jobs to be shipped to low-wage countries. And some of the criticism in the past of trade deals are legitimate. Sometimes they have served the interests of large corporations and not necessarily of workers in the countries that participate in them. but we've just gone through this exercise between the United States and Asia. Where we organized a large regional trade deal with 11 countries. And part of the argument that I'm making in the United States is that the answer to globalization and income inequality and lack of wage growth is not to try to pull up the drawbridge and shut off trade. The idea is to make sure that in these trade deals we are embedding standards and values that help lift workers. Rights and help lift environmental standards and help fight against things like human trafficking and child labor. And our values should be embedded in how countries trade with each other. So, for example, Vietnam was one of the countries that is part of this Trans-Pacific Partnership. And we said to Vietnam, if you want access to our markets, we understand you have a different political system than us. But if workers have no rights and there's no possibility of organizing labor unions, we're not going to let you sell a bunch of sneakers and t-shirts into our country because by definition you're going to be undercutting the standards of living of folks in our country. And so for the first time, the government of Vietnam has started to change its laws to recognize labor unions. Now, they're still suppressed. Those standards are not where they are in the United States or the UK. But it gives us a lever by which to begin to raise standards all around the world. Now, that's less of an issue between the United States and Europe. The main thing between the United States and Europe is trying to just break down some of the regulatory differences that make it difficult to do business back and forth. Plus, making sure those light sockets are all matched up.